I don't know how old I was. I just have this kind of picture memory of this point where I still thought, oh, the world and the challenges in the world and the things that we do to the natural world, the things that we do to the animals that are problems could be changed if only people knew that this was what was happening. So I had this idea that knowledge would create change. So, oh, people don't know that we do these terrible things to nature and to the animals. So if they knew, then they would change. That was sort of my thinking at the time as a little girl. And then obviously as I got older, I realized it wasn't a lack of information. It wasn't a lack of this knowing here that kept us doing things that are creating this crisis on the planet. So then I was quite puzzled, like, what is it that actually creates change? If knowing about things doesn't equal change, what is it that's needed? And that's kind of been my inquiry throughout my life, in this relationship between humanity and the non-human beings, but also increasingly then in terms of our own inner changes. So as we've discussed, we've both been on this movement medicine journey, which is also concerned with our own healing, with our own unpacking of the things that drive us, with the patterns that maybe don't serve us anymore, with the trauma healing that is needed for most of us. And so for me, there's these parallels between this question of, like, how do we change the big picture, the many challenges, which is what concerned me for a lot of my life more. I was more kind of oriented towards, what do we need to do to change this? And so it was like knowledge, or do we need to take more action? Do we need to be out there fighting? And then increasingly through my own personal journey, realizing, okay, but there is another component to that that's equally, if not more important, which is how do we understand ourselves and understand what drives us? What are the stories? What are the patterns that are not just our own patterns, that are the patterns that we've inherited from our ancestors, from our families, but also from our culture and from this capitalist culture that we live in? What are the stories about what matters? What are the stories about who we are and what we should do and how we should live and what we should aspire to, that shape us in a way that create these problems, that create the problems in the world, the climate crisis, the social injustice, the many forms of biodiversity loss and so on, but that also actually at the same time create that feeling of disconnection, that feeling of despair and loneliness and dissatisfaction and depression and all these other things that many of us probably recognize that we struggle with, where we might think, oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm not feeling happy, I'm not feeling fulfilled, I feel stuck, I feel overwhelmed, that those things are caused by the same dynamics that the challenges in the outer world are being created by. So, in a way, for me, that's kind of the central inquiry in all of my work. It's like, how do we create positive change for ourselves, but in relationship to the positive change that we want to see in the world? It's not one or the other. We can't find healing here without there also being a sort of greater healing or greater change in terms of our relationship with each other, a relationship with the non-human world. And we can't create a better world out there if we don't also address how the dynamics of what's at stake out there live in ourselves.